Right.
Okay,
yes,
that's good.
Matthias.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So, okay, let's start. Again, we are very sorry for this, but we'll try to not to lose too much time from now. So, welcome everyone to this SHARC session, and thank you for your interest in our work. So, next slide. Anna. I need to start with a few practical information to make things a bit easier. So please, there is a shared document for the session notes. We will provide the link as soon as possible in the chat. And so please, you're invited to go there, to open it and to include your name in the attendees list and any information you wish to leave here. You're very welcome. During the presentation, questions or short comments are very welcome, but for that, during the first part, please use the chat box, so the Zoom chat box. And there will be specific moments for the discussion later on in the session. So please keep muted during the session when not talking, and the session slides, note and the recording will be made available by RDA and by us on the SHARC website, on the SHARC web page on the RDA website. Next slide, please. Thanks. So the session will be run in two parts. In the first part, we will have the presentation after a brief introduction of the preliminary results of a survey we are conducting. And the part two will be dedicated to a collective discussion. Next. So a bit of context. The RDA SHARC interest group is an interdisciplinary group that was set up initially to unpack and improve crediting and rewarding mechanism in the data or resource sharing process, and now it has expanded to more open science activities globally. The main goal is to provide recommendation to foster the implementation of rewarding paths and encourage the adoption of open science activities related criteria in the research evaluation process. So at different levels, institutional, national, European, and international. And the people who co-chair this group are in the green box over there. Next slide. And the SHARC interest group is also part of a recent global multi-stakeholder coalition on reforming research assessment that is coordinated by the European Commission. Next slide. So today's session objectives are to discuss with you the necessity of rewarding open science activities, given all the work it implies. And this discussion will be based on the preliminary result of a survey we are conducting as part of a subgroup of SHARC. And further objectives of this session will be to help fuel the discussion conducted as part of this East European Coalition on Reforming Research Assessment. And also, for sure, it will help feed future SHARC recommendations. Next slide. Now about the survey. It aims to identify perceptions and expectations of various research communities regarding open science activities and regarding how open science activities are or should be taken into consideration and rewarded. This survey was launched quite recently in April 2022. It is an ongoing survey until end of September that you are very welcome to complete. And at the time of extraction for this session, we had 113 complete responses that, next slide, please, that now Florencia and Arna are going to present. So Florencia Ingratarola is from Biodiversity Data and from the University of Life Science in Prague. And Anna Schmagun, who will present a bit later, is from KISTI at the University of Science and Technology in Korea. So Florencia, the floor is yours now.
Thanks, Lawrence. Thank you. And thanks to all of you for your patience. So yeah, we will start by presenting some of these preliminary results. So first, I would like to show you some background information about our respondents, starting by with gender. So this is what they answer. It was a free text. We decided to include this question because we want to be able to tell if there are any difference between genders in the expectations of how should open science activity be rewarded. Next. We also asked about where they were based, which country did they work in. And so we received responses from people working in 22 different countries. As you can see, there's a big influence in the SHARC group members, as we are from France, South Korea, United States, and Uruguay. So if you see next slide, most of the responses came from these countries. In the graph, sorry, I didn't say that, you can see percentages, and you can also see the numbers, the quantities. So on the next slide, you can see in a more spatial view, let's say here, how many responses globally. So this is an interesting thing that can guide us to see where to focus for future responses. There are some in South America, in North America. We have South Korea as the country with most responses, and there's many European countries and one African country. So yeah, this can help us focus on the next steps. So next slide. There's an open mic.
Yes.
Okay, so there. So regarding the main position or the job titles of the respondents, we see that most of them are researchers, followed by professors, graduate students, data specialists, postdocs. But interestingly, we also had responses from other people such as software engineers and librarians. You can see some free text responses in the table there. Next. So if we see now the main affiliation organization of the respondents, we see that research institutes and universities are dominating here. But interestingly, we also see some organizations related to governments and others related to what we can describe as private sector or industry or within these areas, which is interesting that they got interest by redundancy. But yeah, so next slide. Here you can see the variety of disciplines that the respondents said they were involved in, and well, there's a lot of them. We were very happy to see all this variety, but we can see most of them, or the big fields are computer science, biology, and then a lot of them are repeated, like in the colors, and the size of them is showing how many respond the same. Yeah, next slide. We can focus also as another background of these respondents on their experience they had in the field. And here we can see that most of them had more than 5 years of experience in their field. So this is Yeah, and then there is majority of them that have between 10 and 20 years of experience. So yeah, in this first analysis, we pulled all the results together, irrespective of gender, main position, their experiences, but we are interested in viewing these responses segregated in the future. As I said in the beginning, maybe gender or the country or where they come from or where they are based can be interesting to see this data on. But as a first analysis, we didn't want to partition the data in that way. So the first question in next slide regarding to our survey was, are you familiar with open science? And as we can see, most of them are. Then this is 85% of them are aware of open science. So in the next slide, we suggested some open science activities taken from a literature review, and we asked them if they were involved in any of this. So if you see in the right, you can see the percentages that they were yes involved, or in the left, no, they were not involved. So we can see that, for instance, 60% of them have published as open access, 47% have shared data, but yet only 10% had been involved in, for instance, pre-registration of the research. That is the same as saying 90% have never been involved in that. So we received some other responses, and we wanted to highlight some of them. So these were a set of prepared open science activities, but they also could suggest some others. So in the next slide, we highlight some of them because we believe they are all related to giving support to enable the open science to develop. So there are activities such as teaching, coordinating repositories, advising, giving guidance, building best practices or models, and so on. So this is all related to supporting activities, and we were happy to see them, and it's a very interesting to know there's more than direct activities, but others that enable open science. So next slide, we were asking about how familiar they were with FAIR principles. So we see that even a lot of people are aware of open science, less of them are, people are aware of them, of the FAIR principles compared to those aware of open science. So, and if we see the next slide, how many of them were involved in verification steps, we see that even less of them actually were involved. So they are aware of open science, some of them are aware of FAIR principles, but then getting involved in them is not the most, the majority of the people. So, so next slide, I would give the space for Hannah to continue. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Nice. Can you hear me? Okay. Nice to meet you virtually. I will continue presenting the preliminary results of our survey. And on the slide, you can see how our respondent replied to the question, does the organization have formal policies on various open science activities? And you can see that 57 respondents, or like roughly 50%, said that yes, the organization have adopted some formal policies, and 53 respondents said no, they doesn't have. So basically, there is not large margin between these two groups, 50-50. This slide, this table presents some examples of institutional open science policies which our respondents said that the organization has adopted. This include policies of research institutes mainly, and policies of government agencies promoting science, the last two. Some of them are focused on open access or research data exclusively, and there are a few general policies with a broad open science agenda. For example, respondents from Korea mentioned KISTI open access policy. For those who don't know, KISTI is a public research institute under the aegis of Korean Ministry of Science and ICT, which supports various tasks on managing and distributing information related to science and technology and national research and development projects. And so according to this policy, KISTI researchers must deposit a copy of the published journal article in a KISTI repository. So it's like a green open access mandate. And actually, this policy is the only explicit requirement mandate for open access in Korea, which is registered in the ROR-MEP, which is International Register of Open Access Policies and Mandates. All this, like the text in this column is linked to policies, so you will have access to this slides later, and you can check it. This interesting results. So we also asked to what extent, to what degree the respondent felt confident in the necessity to reward 7 types of open science activities, which you can see on the left. Sorry. We used the 5-point Likert scale for this, with options ranging from definitely it should be rewarded to definitely it should not be rewarded. In this graph, the green area indicates positive responses, like definitely it should be rewarded, very probably it should be rewarded. And gray area is like neutral responses, possibly, and the beige area, it's negative responses, it should not be rewarded. And as you can see, the green area dominates. It means that most respondents agree that open science activity should be rewarded somehow. And open access to scientific publications like papers or monographs, and open fair data management and sharing are the top 2 categories with the highest level of respondent confidence that this activity should be rewarded. So there is not a large margin between them, like 81% and 78%. And if you remember the previous results which Florencia presented, briefly show you. These 2 types of open science activities are also the top activities in which our respondents were personally engaged, like participated, like open access and data management and sharing. Okay, and respondents were the least confident in the necessity to reward open collaboration via virtual research environments such as virtual laboratories. And also it's interesting to see that respondents didn't feel strongly about preprint sharing here, and probably most still don't perceive preprints as credible as peer-reviewed scientific literature. Next. Then we asked whether the respondent organization has implemented any initiative giving credits, rewards for open science activities. As was expected, actually, the results show that the open science rewarding practices haven't been well institutionalized yet. So only 13 respondents, or basically 11%, said that their organization has relevant initiative. And that means, again, I will go back to previous slide. This one. This means that despite the fact that 50% of respondents said that their organization has some formal policy on open science, probably most of these policies do not include anything that be perceived as rewards for open science. Among those who said that their organization has rewarding initiative were respondents from the United States, Netherlands, France, Finland, and other countries which you can see on this slide. On the next slide, I will give you some examples of these initiatives which were mentioned in open-ended responses. So one very promising example is the recent initiative of Utrecht University in the Netherlands. aiming to change their formal evaluation policy by embracing the open science agenda. It is called Utrecht University Recognition and Reward Vision. You can also access later. The basic idea of this vision is displayed in this figure. So basically, Utrecht University decided to shift their main focus from quantitative indicators such as a journal impact factor and to assess researches based on scientific quality and societal impact by recognizing a wide range of the activities, including the commitment to teamwork and open science. Another example, respondent from France reported the open science policy of Research Institute CNRS. According to this policy, open science activities are included in the researcher annual activity report. For example, only open access publications made available in the French National Open Repository HAL are eligible to be included in that report. So it means that not open access publications not available in HAL, they are not considered as research outputs in the researcher performance evaluation. A similar policy was mentioned by a respondent from a US Research Institute. He said that open science activities outputs are included in individual annual achievement reports at the institute. However, it was a very general response, so the respondent preferred not to mention the name of his research institute. And lastly, a respondent from Finland said that in their university they have open science annual award. We cannot identify the affiliation of this respondent, but to our knowledge, in Finland, there are two universities, University of Helsinki and Tampere University, which provide such awards for exceptional work in promoting open science. Our survey also had an open-ended question. How would you personally want open science activities to be rewarded? And basically all our respondents provided opinion on this, and we coded, labeled all responses into broad categories you can see on this slide, and then counting their frequency. According to our results, the most desired reward is including open science indicators in research evaluation processes. This is gray, the bottom. This applies to different types and units of evaluation. For example, as part of this broad category, our respondents mentioned formal evaluation procedures for hiring research staff, evaluation, like annual research evaluation at institutes, evaluation of PhD candidates, evaluation of a research project proposal, and so on. So it's like really like broad categories, but in all this like formal evaluation procedures, they should have some criteria, indicators to give credits for open science activities and outputs. For example, like a shared data set prepared according to FAIR principles should be considered as a research output. The second most desired reward is funding, providing funding for open science activities, such as covering open access publishing fees, like APC. Many of these categories actually are like tangible rewards, which have a monetary value or can be easily converted, transformed into it. This includes funding, awards, bonuses, career progression. It's also interesting to see that support, for example, such as provision of IT infrastructures and tools, was also considered as reward for practicing open science. And also, in contrast to this tangible monetary-based rewards, we have, for example, one category called good science. Let me see. It is linked to 3 responses, not many, but this respondent said that open science strongly contributes to research quality and integrity that should be treated as a standalone reward for scientists. So as we mentioned before, our survey and our research is ongoing. So later on, we are going to improve this taxonomy of open science reporting categories, measure the relationship between them, and arrange them in a more hierarchical order. So please do track the outcomes of our research in our group page on the Research Data Alliance website. So it's all for my part. I will give floor to Anne, which will run the discussion part. And in case of any questions, please put them in the chat box.
Thank you very much. Hello to all. So now it's the time for you to discuss our attendance of the session. I will be there just to give some input and try to have you participating. But the idea is that we get your input there. So the next slide. First of all, you have seen, I hope interesting for you, results of where we are for the moment with analyzing the first set of responses. And of course, we would like to increase this number. And you have here, and also it has been pasted in the chat, the links to the survey, which exists in different languages, English, Spanish, and Korean. And so we really would like many of you, and circulated your colleagues in different parts of the world to answer that. So the next slide is just some beginning of question. You have seen presented by Hannah, the proportion of people who are aware of open science or FAIR principles. And this was a very vast majority, 85% of the respondents. Yes, and the data are coming here. So,
and FAIR principles here. Yes, so the majority. Yes,
the majority of people were aware or considered that they were familiar. The question here is, how is it, what does it mean to be familiar with open science? But the question I have in the discussion is, according to, is this a proportion that you think is also the case, or could be the case in your environment? Does that reflect? You can put your answer in the chat or ask for the word. So I can't see any person asking for talking. Maybe there are some answers in the chat. It's difficult to see all at the same time.
No, not
but
yet.
This can show also that, first of all, there is progress as compared to some years ago in open science being known, at least. And the other thing is a sort of ambiguity. Being aware does not mean that you do it, and we will see that in the next thing.
There is one.
Is there anyone wanted to talk?
Anne, can you hear me? There is one response in the chat, which is yes and no. It's very context related.
Okay, yes.
Someone yes. Okay. You can talk. You're welcome to talk.
Do you want to comment on your answer?
Sorry, it took quite a long time. I think the proportion of people aware of open science is really, yes, dependent of the community and the organization. and even if it can be flattened as a median, like in the survey, it's still important to have this in mind, because the way it can then raise, hopefully, is different, whether depending on the
Yes.
stage.
Can you say where you are from?
Sorry, I'm Dimitri Zabo. I'm from INRAE, the research institute in France
Yes.
for agronomy and agriculture.
Yes, so that's obviously part of the analysis we would like to make when we get more answers to match this knowledge awareness of open science with different communities, so the institutions or communities. Yes, you're right. Anyone wanted to comment on this? If not, before going to the next, I would add that this can also show that we have a skewed sample of responses. And this cannot be extrapolated, of course, generally speaking, to the whole world and whole communities. So the next slide, it's another question relating to the results you just saw. And it is about the responses about institutional open science policies. Does that, according to your experience, reflect the reality in general, if you know, or in your own context? And you remember that open science policies were present in rather, I would say, high percentage of institutions, but much less than, of course, the knowledge of open science from the respondents.
50-50.
The answer. So you see about more than a half, I would say, more than a half of the institutions of the individuals who responded were having a policy of open science. So according to you, our attendance here, do you have comments on that? You can say something or say something in the chat.
I'm sorry, I missed the slide, but was there also the question for specifically research data?
No,
not just
it was
open
for
science,
open science in
but open
general.
data.
A policy for open science, not specifically open data.
Including open data.
Yeah,
Not
including, but
yes,
not
exclusively, not exclusively, but including.
Anything about that?
I have my hand there. I don't know if anyone else. No, I wanted to say that I think this institutional policies, one thing when we were reading some of them, I think there are policies and that doesn't mean that it gets into practice, let's say, from having the policy to actually having people sharing their data or getting involved in open science activities. There's a big, huge gap maybe. And yeah, I mean, this is very interesting anyway to know that there are open science policies around the world and that people are aware, because sometimes you are in an institution and you don't really know if there are any policies about this, but so they are aware of their existence. That's quite a big thing, I think. But the thing is this, that some cases you can see that the policies existing, that doesn't mean that yeah, for instance, there are rewards for doing open science, or that there are some kind of there are support supporting this opening. So I think, yeah, it was interesting to know good that there are, but that doesn't mean you can reach open science that easily. So there's like the policy and then the action or the getting towards.
Yes, that's very classical in the work of sociologists, and they always analyze the difference between the rule or the policy and the reality. And we probably have the same in open science. Anything else on this question? So the next slide, please. We will go to another question, and it's about the diversity of open science activities. You have seen on the slide that we had in the survey mentioned a number of them, just to guide a bit for people. And these are shown now on the slide, the different kind of activities related to open science that we proposed. And of course, this is not all of them. That could have been a too long list, but it was an orientation list, I would say. And you can see that publishing an open access paper is the one that is the most practiced by the respondents we had so far. Then there were other activities related to open science, and mainly that were added, that you have seen, and some of them were related to education and support to open science. And of course, this was not in our list, and there are many other ways of being active towards open science obviously in the respondents we have so far. So the question which is on this slide is, there is a big diversity of open science activities, and does that make the research evaluation easier, because there are many aspects, or more complicated, according to you? Anyone asking for the word? I don't know if any of you participate in evaluation of research activities. And this issue is existing for other aspects. When you have one line of activity, like do you publish? It's easier than when you get into a very detailed one. What kind of paper do you publish? Is it a research paper, an original one, a replication of another one, and so on? So we feel we have the same kind of issue with open science activities. Broadly, you can have a sort of yes or no you practice, but if you get into the detail, you get, of course, a more detailed picture, but in order to evaluate it, grade it, it might be more complicated. And that will probably be an issue when talking about evaluation and rewards.
I can say something.
Yes, sure. Anna?
I think that it's very clear that there is a problem that still in many countries we don't have unified taxonomy of these open science activities, which is also complicates, makes challenges for evaluation. Because even if we can think about the term open access, in different countries, different people differently understand what it means. Because like classical approach, it means open access mostly to scientific literature, like papers, monographs, and so on. But in Korea, in some other countries, open access also means, like more broadly, they consider it like open access to all different types of outputs. So it should be like, I think funders and research evaluators should clearly decide and make some kind of like this items, the clear system of these activities, because it's also important.
It's all right, and that's in this work of constructing this survey. We within the subgroup of SHARC that worked on that, we had a sort of typology of different activities, very different countries. It had an interest to have this discussion, but we cannot say that the typology we have made so far has any legitimacy in terms of covering the whole world or many different institutional aspects. So one thing that is the survey online, okay, gives a number of elements, but could be obviously complemented like what we discussed for the moment. And that can be done through interviews. So we have a second set of methods for this survey, which is interviewing people. And if any of you in the audience today would like to be interviewed, you can signal that either in the notes or on the chat. It might be easier through an interview to get into details rather than in an open session where it might be not so easy to talk.
There is a comment in the chat.
Yes.
So to the previous question, which is agreed. Another issue is that open science and evaluation services of organization are not always well connected.
I couldn't more agree with that. I see that the comment is coming from Dimitri from INRAE, the Agro-Environmental Research Institution in France. And I can say that knowing CNRS and knowing INSERM, getting the things in practice in evaluation as compared to having an institutional policy are two not different worlds. They are obviously connected, but it's really a different step to get evaluation rules first, and then these rules being applied to all the different disciplines that are present in CNRS, for example. So it's a long-term enterprise. Okay, so I think we can go to another question. Next slide. Quotes from the respondents. Some respondents said, open science should be an ethical principle for an ethical researcher. The way to do it is one's own reward. And another quote, do not use monetary incentives as it perverts the system. We were all looking at the answers quite it was striking for all of us. And we thought it was interesting to ask the audience today, do you think scientists can be motivated by good science or by, which is not monetary, but reputation and visibility aspects of open science, or the tangible monetary-based rewards, not necessarily monetary in terms of money, but being rewarded through your career path, through your appreciations of your activity, are usually what is among the at least academic rewards. What do you think should be the main driver for adopting in practice for researchers open science, according to your own views? Oh, there is a comment in the chat, which is from Alison. There is some really nice material here. And thank you for this appreciation of the survey so far. So if nobody is talking,
Laurence
somebody
speaking.
asking? Laurence, yes.
Yes, just a comment here. I guess it is an important question because open science could be seen as a service also. And in that way, could not necessarily need some rewards. So it is quite important to really decide collectively how these activities should be considered. Are there really a guarantee for a good science, and which is quite an ethical issue, or are they just services that people are paid for and nothing more? Just a comment.
I can see two contributions in the chat that came, and Marie-Lise is saying about this question, the main driver of people will be money. We see it with funding, but the main driver should be visibility and reputation. And Dimitri is saying that this raises the question of should monetary-based rewards be used at all? And there are other contributions. I'm just reading them because maybe not everybody has the chat open. We are asked if we can explain regarding the mention about the reward from university about open science. Maybe I answer that because it's quite crucial for this kind of question. Reward does not mean in this aspect necessary money. It is a
We've lost you, Anne. Or at least me.
I think we lost Anne.
I can't see if you.
Sorry, I was cut and out of the session. I don't know if you could still hear me or not.
No,
Yes. Now we hear you.
Now
before.
Okay. So I was trying to answer the question, what do we mean by reward? The name of the group working on that is reward and credit. So make visible, make recognized. And of course, making an activity recognized as a good output of your research activity means putting it just like it is done, to take an example, for publications or for making databases or commenting on databases. These things are recognized in the evaluation, depending on the discipline. And that's what we ask for. How do you see open science activity being considered as output of research that have a value? That's what we thought when making the survey. Now, apparently, I have not anymore what was on the chat when I was cut from the session, so I can't read the contributions.
Oh, I can read it for you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I guess you were there. My idea is we need to make meet the ethical aspect of open science and the ethical aspect of reproducibility and integrity. I think that reproducibility, integrity is an intrinsic motivation that can be more direct than open science. And that's a comment from Raphael, but
thank you. Can I ask the person who are not talking to close their microphone, because we hear a number of noises.
Thanks. That's one comment, and there is another one, but maybe you wish to comment about that, Anne? Or Raphael, if you want to talk, please.
Yeah, maybe Raphael could come and give some more comments?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say that on my researcher experience, like for DMP, for example, I begin to be very interested with writing DMP, not because librarians or other colleagues told me that it was important for open science, but because I really think that it was a good tool for making my science more more integrity in my science. And finally, when I take this step, I see that I could add on this the open science ethics. And I think that we maybe have a way to meet these two ethicals that are not on the same level of extrinsic or intrinsic motivation. And I think that maybe there is something to work on this when we are doing some awareness training session or things like that. That was just my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's very important what you mentioned there. And being myself involved in education to research integrity, we actually have open science as one element we discuss and teach in a way, not in terms of technical aspect, but in more the motivation, the place of this in the general picture, aim of doing research and so on. And I think this is quite an important aspect. And young people are usually interested in this aspect. I don't know if it is because they are enthusiastic about their new career paths and activities, but they are quite sensitive to this aspect of why do I do science and what is the aim? And the aim is also to communicate to society and so on.
There is a comment from Alison too. There are others comments to come. Alison, do you wish to talk, or do you want me to read part of your comment? Alison says that she doubts that many people will be able to single one motivation out, and the balance will differ according to the career stage. Ecologists and biodiversity people are often passionate about saving the world. Well, she's from that universe, so.
Yes, I think so. That's also something we can analyze when we have more answer. The different comments proposal, because there are obviously free text there, matched with the career advancement of those who propose one thing or another one. Another thing which is related to that, but also to other questions which came to my mind, is that when proposing reward activity and or way of rewarding different activities, there was a number of things which are related to support functions. And it would be interesting to explore whether the obvious implementation of open science activities are related to the reward in terms of career or whatever, or to the fact of making it easy. That means being educated to it, having the tools to it, having the support to make these open science activities. And from even what I hear here, I have the impression that the facility, the help to researchers to do these kind of activities are as important in the adoption of it as the reward in terms of monetary or career, and that may be different according to communities and stage in the career. But I think that's something we could further explore.
There is also a
yes.
comment from Graham Smith, who refers
Yes.
to a survey, an open data annual survey that apparently addresses the points we have discussed, where impact, visibility, citation, co-authorship are highest rated motivators, but public benefit also highly rated. So that's an important reference.
Absolutely, yes.
Have a look close.
So maybe we go to another. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I had my hand there because I wanted to point out exactly what you said, Anne, about the support in this system, let's say, and that I think, there's one thing is that you're aware of open science. The other is that you know how to do it, or what is there, like the universe of things that are there to be done. So I think this is very important as well, and maybe funding or monetary related activities, let's say, can be more important there than in rewarding. And as a second thing, I think someone asked about what is a reward in universities or in other or type of organizations, and it's interesting that we had this discussion internally. I mean, we always kind of think about it because of our different languages. We all think of this as a different thing. What is a reward? And in Spanish, if you translate it directly, it's always related with money. The words that translate directly. So it's when I was translating the survey to Spanish, I tried to also translate it in a way that doesn't mean money, because it can be a reward and that is not monetary, let's say. But I think it's usually pointed at that area when you think of rewards. I don't think that it's the case that much in English, but yeah, it's interesting to take it out of that
in
area.
English, they also have the word credit, which
is an incentive. Credit is true. It sounds not as money related.
And there is another comment. The support factor is likely to be even more important, as if there are these resources, they are more likely to learn about open science in the first place. And the semantic discussion is appreciated too. I wonder if we can go to the next slide. Yes, the responses you saw in the presentation by Flo and Anna show that the existence of open science policy was more frequently present in institutions than a reward policy for such activities. And that alludes to what we discussed already, that having a policy is one thing, having it implemented in terms of recognition of activity is another thing. So I was wondering what were the reasons for this situation and what you think about it. And I just give on this slide 2 examples of reasons. One is a sort of logic. You first have to implement something and then you evaluate it and reward it, if it happens. And it's a circle, because if you don't reward, it does not happen. So this can be discussed. Another reason can be you need more education on open science before rewarding it, both for scientists and for the evaluators. And for the moment, it's not there enough. So you may have a good intention with the policies, but there are a number of reasons that can explain that it's not or it's less, at least, in the evaluation system. What do you think? Comments on that?
Maybe I can just comment a little bit.
Yes.
Laurence speaking.
Yes.
I would say that probably both, as often, both are needed at the same time, and that probably that's what I think that's the case for now. That education has started, but still it's not enough. But we still need to adopt policies and try to implement things. Otherwise, the circle will not run. I mean, it won't work. I would say that both really are needed at the same time.
But there is a comment related to that in the chat, which is from Julianne, and she says, open science is implemented top-down, not bottom-up. So policies are coming first before open science is a day-to-day reality in institutions. And it's true that it comes through policies that come top-down.
I would like to comment something.
Yes, Hannah?
I think that this reform in traditional evaluation and reward system is definitely, it's not initial stage of open science adoption. So first it should be some like general legal instrument, general policies which facilitate open science adoption, then like a proper infrastructure which we can like deposit our scientific outputs like repositories and so on. And only then, when we see that like this open science practices activities more like mature enough, we can think about how we can require them, how we can mandate, how we can evaluate them. So because otherwise, if it's not in a country, in an institutional level, if open science, there is no proper support, if open science is not mature enough, we cannot evaluate, we cannot change this system yet.
There is one okay, and then we can read the next comment on the chat, which is if money or funds or means in terms of personnel or other are allocated to open science activities, it's not directly influencing the career of people, the money they have on their account, but it's people are searching for means to do research, usually. When you ask for funds, it's for funding the activities of your PhD students and the team. So it's not only personally perceived and necessary. So if open science activities are funded as such, as an activity of researchers, and people are always looking for means to do their activities, it will foster the implementation of open science. Just the fact of funding them as activities. And this is what is happening partly with some funding agencies, where they allocate a certain amount of money that cannot be used for anything else to open science activities. And that's probably efficient to make it real, even not being an individual reward.
There are a number of comments in
yes.
the chat. Can you see them?
Yes, now I can see. I have to see. Evaluation, where do I start?
Okay. From Dimitri.
After the one, yes, Dimitri. Dimitri is saying evaluation policies are also implemented top-down. So maybe the delay between the implementation and evaluation is also related to the gap between open science and the previous paradigm of valorization. True enough, yeah. And then Julianne also commented again, also only if there is demand by funding bodies, the additional effort to switch to open science workflows can be realized, yes. And that joined what I was saying before. Then Molly Billy is commenting, reward should not necessarily be in monetary terms to the researcher. Academic progression and recognition should be the top rewards. Monetary-based rewards will come in the form of research funding to the researcher, thus encouraging and enabling more open research to be conducted and shared. So I think we are with these comments in the same path, that we are not just trying to find money for individual researchers as an efficient reward and credit, but academic crediting with all the reputation and means to work, and a priority of funding agencies having money for doing this research will be an important driver. So there is hope through policies.
Can I add a comment on
yeah,
this?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm very talkative. I wanted to point that, yeah, in a case example in Uruguay, that we have, Uruguay was one of the respondents that pointed at a policy, a national policy. So this national policy is actually there, but you cannot really see that it's being implemented. And one case example is that I think these policies anyway are very important. Before we didn't have anything. I think it's because it's a worldwide subject, and because funders outside are including this and want that more and more gets, this open science gets everywhere. We could see that even industry and private sector are getting involved in this, but we needed the input from maybe a regional or a Latin American perspective, so that it gets into our universities, our funding agencies. But then that's there, and then you have the other reality of the, in my case, biodiversity area, which it hasn't yet worked. So it's the policy, but not the open science activities there. So it's just a case of few researchers or professors that are involved in these activities. So this thing about bottom up they were saying. So the top down is not working that well, but it gives the researchers the, let's say, support or backup that this is something that is nationally included, and we are looking forward to that. But it hasn't changed much in 10 years, let's say. So one example is as we didn't have biodiversity data open repositories as a country, and as part of a work I've done with some other colleagues, we collected data and we put together the first open access databases. And the reward there was regarding the credit about being recognized for sharing this data, to make like as a data paper, as a author in the database. And yeah, it didn't attract that many researchers from the hundreds we have or more in this sector. So it's a very long path we need to go. I think policies top down are not effective unless there is some kind of support for this researchers. And even if there is, because we gave that support, it's just unpredictable. I think it's difficult to tell what people, even they were mentioning this was an important reward for them, like authorship. It's not really that much the way forward only. And so yeah, just as a case example, let's say. But yeah, authorship for us was the path, and still it's not enough, I think.
Yes, there is another comment from Graham Smith. Again, looking at reward versus enforcement separately. The move of data sharing and open science more generally can be seen as a behavior change issue. One of the most effective motivators is social proof, which is what others in your area are doing. So growing data uptake via communities is an important idea. Thank you very much. This is very true. I can give the example of France, where we have had at the Ministry of Research a national plan for open science since 2018. So first 4 years, and now we are in the second 4-year plan. And this has really changed in terms of wanting to implement policies of open science in the various institutions, universities. Although it's not yet all implemented, it really gave a push. So the political will at national level has really consequences. So I think we are approaching soon from the end of the session. So this slide, I think there is another one. Or is it my last one? Can I see the next slide? Yeah. Okay, there is still a comment, which I will read from Julian, who says that it had to be, which makes it had to implement open science and fair data standards in university curricula. The lecturers need to be trained and motivated to teach the next generation. That's obviously important to have to learn about open science in order to be able to transmit it. Oh, I lost the slides. Oh, something was wrong there. Now, had this yes, but I lost the slides. Something happened. I'm not anymore in full screen. Sorry. I can't see the slide anymore.
But the slide is, the question is, do we need quantitative criteria or metrics, or just qualitative ones to assess research in general for open science activities?
Yes, it's all, now we get into
less than 5 minutes.
Techniques of evaluation. Everybody here, I think, knows about all the debate about using quantitative metrics, and this has been exaggeratedly done with publication metrics. So for open science, what is your view about having qualitative or quantitative metrics or criteria? So there is still a comment in the chat.
There were comments, I think, related more to the previous discussion that we didn't see.
I think we lost Anne, but yeah.
Julian is saying that the lecturers need to be trained and motivated to teach the next generation about open science and fair data standards, for sure. We can only agree. And Raphael is referring to a training program that we have in France. Good. And Anna, I don't know. Anna, do you want to say something?
Yes. I just copied some official answer from Utrecht University in Netherlands, which I mentioned. They're pretty committed to reform their affiliation policy by embracing open science. And on the website is written are you going to consider quantitative metrics or just qualitative? And they said you can see the official answer. So I mean, it's not possible to totally get rid of quantitative metrics. So the focus should be on qualitative, but it should be responsible use of some quantitative metrics as well. You can see the answer on that on this link.
Sure. So probably both are needed depending on the criteria that is considered. I think we are arriving at the end of the session. So I don't know if there is another slide behind this one.
Another slide, yes. There is a last one.
Not
We
sure
have
we're going to
choose two slides. Maybe we should choose the last one. This one, no. Or this one.
And for some reason, we're not listening to you. I think you're.
No, Anne is. We've lost Anne.
I again.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was reading what was in the chat, and I don't know when the sound stopped.
So we have two slides. Maybe we should choose only one for discussion.
Yes, for the last discussion.
Or this one.
Yes. This one is research is often international, multi-institutional, and multidisciplinary. And it goes in that direction quite much. Do you think that the rewarding systems for open science activities should be organized on institutional or disciplinary levels, or be more harmonized across? And is the latter possible, in your view, to have a general harmonized system?
Probably related to the European Union initiative of this agreement to reform the evaluation system.
Yeah, I would say start small, have it working in a given community, in a given discipline, or in a given institution, and then it will be a sort of example, and it will then spread, and maybe after some time there will be some elements that will be common everywhere and some specific for institution or for disciplines. There is a lot of comments about the indicators, the previous question. And of course, quantitative indicators will not disappear. There will be new ones. But probably the experience we have with the previous quantitative, when they were just some of them were used, the easy ones, and so they were giving a skewed view. This lesson will probably be a good one for the next generation of quantitative indicators. And the meaning of them is the most important thing.
I like Raphael's comment there. Just saying, I would add that quantitative indicators do not make coffee. I mean, that qualitative indicators are a way to be more careful to people, links, and vulnerabilities. Yes, I totally agree with that. I think complexity when assessing is important. It's not, everything is not linear, and yeah.
Yeah. So I think the care aspect of considering the individual situation of teams or of individuals is a bit erased when you only or too much use quantitative indicators, and they become unjust. And I think that justice in evaluation is one of the main value we should try to implement.
I think probably everyone agrees with that, but the thing is, it is much more complicated to evaluate on the basis of qualitative criteria. Most of the time. That's the point. You see, it's
can be more subjective and therefore.
Yeah, and that's why I think that having too much evaluation is a wrong thing. If you have to be evaluated every 6 months, I take an extreme as an individual, every second year as a team, every half time project for any project, that makes a lot of evaluation and the need for evaluators. So, and then you search for easy things to do because it takes otherwise too much time. So I think that profound evaluation less often can be a way to go.
Yeah, for sure we have to think about that. I think we're coming to the end of the session. Maybe we should display the last slide just to remind that everyone is welcome to join the subgroup that will concretely work on the recommendation, on providing recommendations. So this is really a work going on now. So you can pop in at any moment. No problem with that. We will deal with it.
And through the presentations of today and the discussion, I think you have understood where we are now. And so it's possible to join, even if you were not in the group or in the subgroup before. And I recall as a last thing that we are really interested in getting more answers. And as there are the possibility to have a quick answer to the survey, but also contributions through free text, that is extremely important that you yourself answer if you have not, but at the same time disseminate it to your colleagues. The views of researchers and people concerned are incredibly important to put in place policy of rewards. With this, I think we have to close the meeting, and I would like to thank a lot all those who came. And I would also like to say that the analysis, this first analysis, has been done with a lot of energy, I would say, by Hannah and Flo, and who presented today. And Laurence has been incredibly helpful and pushing, and at the same time nice with us, and could solve the problem of getting into the session in a stressful last-minute moment. So thank you to all, and we'll continue the work.
I still don't know how we could do it. It was really at the last minute.
So it's a miracle it worked. Even if I have been thrown away.
I received a message from our assistant. That's why I could progress, because I have no other solution.
Yeah, otherwise we were stuck. Okay, that's life. I wish all of you a good continuation of RDA plenary, and with many good sessions, I hope. Thank you.
And we will give some update about our work on the SHARC group.
Yes.
Within the SHARC group.
Of course. Yes, sure.
Mailing list. Okay.
So
thanks everyone.
Goodbye.
Thanks everyone. See you soon on the mail for some of you.
Yes, sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.